Hi, this is Brian Payne. Today we're going to be painting a red barn set in the late summer with an impending storm. Nice dramatic turbulent sky. And in order to do this, I want to position that barn and land mass to the lower third of my painting. I want that 2/3 portion to be that dramatic sky. So I'm going to start with a outline sketch of my barn shapes and my land mass. And I'm just concentrating on the outline at this point. I'm not really too worried about particular details. I want it to be just a map of where I want to place color. When I'm finished with that, I have my paint ready. I have my paper ready. I have it tilted at an angle so that it'll allow water and pigment to flow downward. So I'm going to lay in a clear wash of water on that upper 2/3 portion, paying particular attention to not getting the roof line areas of my barn or landmass wet with water at this point. Once that is moistened, I can move on to applying paint. I just have primary colors and a few secondary colors. Some of the paints that I'll be using are Daniel Smith and M. Graham artist quality paints. I'm going to lay in an initial wash of Prussian blue with ultramarine blue, and into that mix I'm going to add alizarin crimson. And my brush strokes are loose and somewhat erratic because I want to capture that turbulence in the sky. I'm not trying to go in one even gradated wash for this exercise. I'm going to introduce some water and some blotting. This breaks up those brush stroke patterns, gives it a more ethereal look. By using a wadded up tissue, I can vary the pressure and the size pattern of what I'm blotting. Think of it as a give and take. You add color, you take it away, you add color, you take it away. Maybe you add water and take it away. Once that's drying or fairly dry, I'm going to start on a shadow portion of the barn, and I'm going to use a warm mix of alizarin crimson and perylene green with a little bit of burnt sienna. You need to think about what side you want your lights and what side you want your darks. In this case, I have my light source coming from the left-hand side. I'm going to moisten that lower area, that grassy, meadowy hillside. And I'm going to introduce some azo yellow, azo green, and as we get further along here, some burnt sienna, alizarin crimson, and perylene green. I'm not trying to be too overly detailed. I want those colors to mix and mingle just to give the impression of a grassy meadow. In fact, I'm going to add a little more azo yellow at this point just to brighten up some of those spots. I'll add some clear water through a spray bottle and allow it to run. That little dot pattern from the spray helps to give it a little more texture as well. And I'll blot some of these areas so that it gives more of a vignette effect. Moving on to that bright side of the barn, I'm using alizarin crimson and an azo yellow mix. It gives a nice rich red barn feel. Let's add some tone to the roof line areas. I got to keep in mind that it'll dry lighter than what it appears, but I don't want to go too dark. I'll charge in a little azo yellow into the barn side. I'll just to warm it up some more. A few more spritzes of water. We'll blot that area to break it up a little more. And then I'm going to do a little more towards the foreground area. This is a mix of pyrroline green and alizarin crimson. And this way I can start introducing a little more definition of grass shapes and brushy areas. Once that's done, I can blot some of those areas, spritz some areas with water, and add some textural effects that way. The foliage in the background, those background trees, are really more to frame that barn area, but it kind of sets it down on the ground, and it gives it a sense of space, sense of distance. Think of contrast, light against dark. I'm using a variety of colors here: azo yellow, burnt sienna, alizarin crimson, pyrroline green. It's just key to not have one solid color and allow those colors to mix and mingle on the paper itself. I'm going to add a little more definition to that hillside, just to delineate a bit. And now back into that sky area. It's dried enough, and now I can add some more intense color. Holding back a bit on my brush, as you can see, and that allows a little looser application of the paint. I want a nice bold amount of color, more pigment than water than what our initial washes were. So I can get some really dark areas and some really loose areas. I'll break it up with some water. Allow that to run a bit, and as you can see, there's some really bold things happening, things you can't achieve with just a brush stroke. Let that work a bit more. And then I can go back in with some more clear water and blotting. Really pull out some of those cloud shapes. Soften some edges and keep some edges hard as well. If there's one thing to think about, I would say make the top portion of that sky darker than the lower towards the horizon. Once that's satisfactory to me, I'm going to move on to the details on the windows, the roof line, add some shadow areas. I'm not trying to be too detailed. I don't think this really calls for it. Of course, you can go as detailed as you care to at this point. I'm going to add my window shapes, my roof edges. And I think I'll even add in a little shadow area to the right side of the barn. And some more foreground details. And in doing this, I'm adding paint that is more pigment than water at this point. I can break it up with water after I apply it, but I want a nice dark application to start with. I'll add a few spatters for visual interest. A bit more. And I think that's going to do it. Appreciate you watching. I hope you tune in again.